What's up everyone, and welcome back to another video. So as you know, Chapter 3 Season 4 brings a ton of massive changes to Fortnite. Those include a brand new loot pool, tons of map changes, and so much more. In this video, I'll be simplifying it all for you and giving you guys my ultimate guide to improve at Fortnite in Chapter 3 Season 4. This video is going to include all the best tips that I've learned for this season and should set you on the right track whether you're a total beginner, a competitive player, or anywhere in between. Before we get into it though, be sure to drop a like if the video helps you out. Consider subscribing as well if you want to see more content just like this in the future. As well as that, consider using code TECHO in the item shop as it's 100% free and it seriously helps your boy out a ton. And lastly guys, if you're looking to step up your game even more in Season 4, I do offer one-on-one coaching services as well. Obviously that costs money, but I'm still going to be grinding these tips and tricks videos as usual. But if you do want to step up your game even more, then the application link is going to be near the top of the description as well. But with that said and without further ado, let's get into today's video. So as you probably know, Chapter 3 Season 4 has a very unique loot pool compared to previous seasons in Chapter 3. And one of the biggest keys to improving in any season is to first learn the loot pool and the overall item meta, which is exactly why I recommend you start off by mastering the loot pool. For this section, we're going to start off by discussing the shotguns. For the shotguns, we've had the striker and auto shotguns both removed from the game, and they've been replaced with the lever action, the prime shotgun, and the EvoChrome shotgun. Going down the list, the lever action shotgun is a bit of a tricky one. If you really get close up to your opponent, you can deal some serious damage, and if you get them boxed up, the lever action can be great, but it's definitely not the best from a distance. It's got a pretty wide bullet spread, so it might be really difficult to handle unless you'd like to get fairly close up. The prime shotgun is what most players seem to consider the best shotgun at the moment. The way I see it, the prime is pretty much the pump shotgun of this season. People have mixed opinions on it, but I feel like it definitely hits really hard if you're accurate with it, and it's definitely the biggest hitter if you're able to hit your shots consistently. And the EvoChrome shotgun is definitely the most unique one. It's pretty much a tactical shotgun, but it's only found in certain locations, and it levels up as you deal more damage with it. I personally think that the prime shotgun is the best shotgun at the moment, but it's definitely largely going to come down to the way you play. For the ARs, the hammer and ranger ARs are both still in the game, and the only change was that the EvoChrome burst rifle was added. The hammer is obviously a more fast shooting, lower damage rifle that's best suited for like closer ranges. On the other hand, the ranger is a hard hitter that works really well from far away, and the new one, the EvoChrome, is a fairly hard hitting burst rifle that upgrades as you deal more damage. It's pretty much the same thing as the shotgun. Overall, ARs are pretty simple this season. I wouldn't really say there's any best AR at the moment. From there, we've got SMGs, which are going to be the rapid fire and the suppressed. The choices here are pretty simple. The rapid fire SMG is a really fast shooting SMG that deals less damage and has less range. On the other hand, the suppressed SMG is a hard hitter but shoots slower and can hit from further away. I think that the SMG you use is really just going to come down to preference as well. It's not really anything too crazy to decide on. And lastly, for our utility items and other weapons, we've got the Hunter bolt action sniper, which is pretty much the bolt action sniper. It's actually the first sniper in quite a while to actually deal 200 HP for a headshot, so you might see that as a good or bad thing. Then we've got the sidearm pistol, which is literally a pistol. And the DMR is still around, and the harpoon gun as well. Honestly, the biggest thing that you should focus on when it comes to all of this is definitely going to be first practicing with each and every item and weapon. You never really know what situations you're going to run into, and although you may prefer certain items over others, at some point in time you're going to be forced to use all of them, so you might as well do it yourself. So if you have any items that you don't really use or you don't like, give them a fair shot and take some time to really learn them. There's a fair chance that by doing that you'll find yourself being more versatile and able to handle more difficult loot situations. One of my favorite ways to experiment with new items is to use them in creative, and I definitely recommend you do that. It also helps that that's a lower pressure environment, so you don't have to worry about getting absolutely crapped on if you're playing like arena or something like that. Raider464 is definitely the go-to for this, as he constantly updates his creative maps to include the new weapons and items. Although the EvoChrome weapons aren't in his maps at the time of making this video, everything else should be. Those weapons aren't in creative in the first place, so there's nothing we can really do about that. So if you want to give that a shot, I'll put the code up to his 1v1 map on screen right now. But overall, learning and understanding the loot pool is definitely a big piece of improving this season, and if you're not familiar with everything yet, I definitely recommend you get started. Moving on from that, the next piece of advice I have for you guys is to spend some time learning the new locations, especially if it's earlier in the season when you're watching this video. The current map features a ton of changes, like the Sanctuary turning into Herald's Sanctum, Condo Canyon changing into some weird futuristic purple stuff, Lazy Lagoon also turning into some weird purple stuff, and so much more. Although you probably have a drop spot figured out, or at least some sort of place that you prefer, I would recommend you try all these new locations. Even if you don't prefer landing there, you're still very likely to come across them, and knowing your way around is super useful. Taking a handful of games to experiment with different drops, especially the new locations, will result in you knowing them a bit better, and you may also find a new drop spot that you like. So overall, definitely give the newer locations a fair shot if you haven't already. Moving on from that, the next crucial piece of improving in Season 4, much like other seasons, is to learn from the pros. Learning Learning from pros in Fortnite has always been one of the best ways to improve fast. After all, pros are literally the best players in the game, so it's safe to assume you can learn from them. You can do this in a few different ways. The first way is to simply watch a pro player on Twitch, YouTube, or whatever else it might be and try to take some notes on their gameplay. Figure out the things that they do in various situations and why they work. And of course, watching people on YouTube is another fantastic way as well. Although most content creators aren't pros, many channels, including my own, serve to give the best tips and tricks that we learn either from our own experiences or from pros. Some tips and tricks channels I would recommend include obviously my own channel, as well as Jiven TV, Ken Beans, It's Jarian, and there are plenty of others as well. Overall though, this type of content is specifically tailored to help you improve, and therefore it's going to be really efficient in terms of time, so I definitely recommend you spend some time watching these types of videos as well as pro gameplay. Another huge factor that's going to help you improve this season is something I always recommend simply because it's so effective, and that's VOD reviewing. VOD reviewing basically refers to the act of watching back your own gameplay, specifically from replay mode, and watching how your game plays out. From watching back your own gameplay, you can do a few things, such as finding your biggest mechanical weak points that cause you to lose fights, figuring out how you can better handle your rotations, decision making, and so much more. VOD reviewing is basically the ultimate key when it comes to finding your weak points and ultimately becoming a much better player in Fortnite. So if you're not VOD reviewing yet, that's definitely something you should get started with. And moving on to the final bit of this video, and lastly, I want to discuss grinding competitive as one of the best ways to improve this season. By competitive, I'm basically referring to any mode or form of gameplay with fairly advanced players. That can include arena, which is the most accessible. It can also include tournaments, which are less accessible but still work super well, and even things like competitive 1v1s, even though those aren't quite as popular anymore. Competing with other players has one specific trait that makes it the best form of practice, and that's because of the standard that you're setting yourself through this practice. For example, if you were to jump in a quick public match or a 1v1 with a friend who's totally average at the game, you're not really going to improve simply because there's almost zero pressure on you to play things out perfectly or perform well. On the other hand, with any competitive mode, the players tend to be a lot more skilled at the game, and you tend to try much harder, which is perfect because it puts you in a situation where you need to improve at the game and learn things in order to keep up. Ultimately, finding some way to play against better players and compete in some capacity is easily the best way to improve your overall skill set in Fortnite. Of course, doing things like mechanical practice maps, 1v1s with friends, and things like that do have their place, but those should be more like an accessory to your competitive practice rather than the main competitive practice. Overall, even if you're a casual player, if you're looking to improve fast, then doing some variation of competitive on a consistent basis is definitely going to be one of your biggest keys to improving at Fortnite this season. But with all that said, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on how to improve fast in Fortnite Chapter 3 Season 4. Overall, by mastering each item in the loot pool, learning each of the new locations, learning from the gameplay of both pros and yourself, as well as grinding the various competitive modes we discussed, you'll be well on your way toward becoming an insane Fortnite player this season. If you found this video helpful, then be sure to drop a like on it and consider subscribing as well if you want to see more content just like this in the future. As you probably know, I'll be grinding out a ton of tips and tricks content this season, so be sure to hit that notification bell, that way you won't miss out on any new videos. As well as that, consider using code TECHO in the item shop as it's 100% free and it seriously helps me out a ton. With all that said, thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.